Good evening, everyone. We'd like to call the Development and Operations Services Standing Committee to order. Today, we acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the traditional territory of the Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island. We are thankful to share in the special spirit of this place, rich in the energy of Mother Earth, our ancestors, and the love of all creation. An adoption of the agenda, that the content of the Development and Operations Services Standing Committee agenda for December 9th, 2019 be adopted as presented. Councillor Doherty moved, seconded. Mayor Saunderson. No other comments or additions. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we all know our responsibility. If something comes up in the meeting, just flag me and let me know. Business arising from the previous meeting? Seeing none. We have no deputations booked this evening, so that brings us right to staff reports. And 6.1 is P 2019-53, a designation bylaw, 400 Maple Street, town file number R01DN118. And I'll ask Director Farr to give us the highlights, please.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, this is a designation bylaw for 400 Maple Street, which is the property on which the Victoria Annex resides. The Victoria Annex was part of a larger school. It was built in 1894 on this site. A large portion of the property was demolished in 1969, leaving this building. And more recently, in concert with a previous development proposal, this site, this property was identified as having a heritage resource value. It was subsequently placed on the municipal register, which provided a measure of protection. The property was sold. The applications that had been filed were abandoned, but in concert with those applications, the consultant confirmed the heritage merits of the building and recommended that the building be designated. In November of 2018, Council passed a notice of intent to designate this building. In the case of the Ontario Heritage Act and the notice of intent to designate, that is really the instrumental step in the heritage designation process. When the notice of intent goes out, it's circulated, made known to the public. People can appeal the notice of intent to designate the bylaw. In this case, the current owner appealed the notice of intent to designate. The Conservation Review Board subsequently dismissed that appeal on the grounds that no information was presented that argued the heritage merits. So, given the dismissal of the appeal, we're into the administrative part of the process now, where the bylaw is advanced for Council's consideration to be passed, and the matters before you tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone in the gallery from the public who would like to speak to this matter? Ken, come on forward. Just introduce yourself for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Ken Gogle. I'm one of the owners of 400 Maple Street. Currently, one of the owners, together with another former local resident, Jason Price. And really the only reason I've attended tonight is just to inform you that we're still very much opposed to the designation, just because we're fairly simple people. We like to simplify matters. We have some experience, especially through my construction company. We have experience in heritage restorations. Our family and my wife involved in 200 Oak Street, the current National Ski Academy. So we do have quite a bit of experience, lots of experience in the building business. We feel we can do justice to this building, restore the building to its former glory, and we would prefer not to have to deal with all the complexities of the heritage designation and the heritage committee and so on and so forth. And especially talking to some of the other developers in town, I'm not really well versed on all the complexities, but everybody's advising me that it's still a good strategy to try to avoid that for the time being. So, any questions?
Okay, thank you. Yep, So our process will be then, what I'll do is put the motion, I'll ask if anyone else wishes to speak, but eventually then we'll just put the motion on the floor and then council will ask their questions. So if you're still here, we have a question for you, we'll bring you back up. Thank you. Margaret?
Hello. I ran home and back again before this. Got here just in time. So, standing committee members, I would like to speak in support of designation. I would like to commend Candace Bondarchuk for the excellent staff report that she compiled. It covers all the salient points. I've been involved with this in one way or another for about I think more than 12 years as part of an ACO member and as well as a Heritage Committee member. And we've been trying to move this property forward for quite some time. And unfortunately, it's falling into neglect. So I would encourage council on standing committee to please support the motion to designate and also follow process afterwards to go forward with property standards so that we can protect this building. Every winter that goes by, it deteriorates even more. And it's such, you know, it's a beautiful old building, it's worth preserving. So, thank you.
Okay, so seeing no one else that wishes to speak to it, the motion before us tonight is that staff report P 2019-53 be received and council enact and pass a designation bylaw as a property of cultural heritage value or interest under section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, RSO 1990 C18 for the property municipally known as 400 Maple Street. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Hanlon, Councillor Doherty, and then questions or comments. Councillor Hanlon?
I'd like to, through you, Madam Chair, just follow up on submission we just heard in terms of the property standards bylaw. And I noticed an order was issued last June and that a structural engineer is being engaged and so on because the building is experiencing some significant problems. And I'm just wondering what exactly the status of that is. When do we expect, like, what will happen after this engineer is retained and does the structural report?
Director Farr?
Through you, Madam Chair, Councillor Hamlin. We're in the midst of activating the engineers. So we're right in the middle of basically contract negotiations to bring an engineer on board. And they'll go out to the site, they'll do the structural assessment, they'll provide a report, and that report will identify any features of the building that may need repair in order to bring it to the state of, you know, structural stability, or alternately they'll advise whether or not just generally what the status is, and then identify what the options are. So the report will help answer the question of what condition this building is in, and will also be helpful in terms of understanding its redevelopment potential. Should the current or future owner to choose to renovate the building and use it for an after purpose.
And just as a follow-up to that, so there will be a report issued, presumably it's going to make some recommendations on work to be done. If the owner chooses not to do that work, can the work be done through the property standards order? And if so, does that mean the cost will be put on the property tax roll for the owner for this property?
Madam Chair, the answer is yes to both. We're hopeful, though, that with the information that's provided, with, you know, the willingness of the owner, that they would take the necessary steps to ensure the structural integrity of the building and allow for after use through redevelopment proposal for the property.
And I just have one more short question and then a comment. My other question is, I heard Mr. Vogel suggest he would do all the right things, but I also noticed, and I wanted to confirm if I read this correctly, that an application to demolish this building was filed last week by the owner.
That's correct.
Thank you. All right, so I just wanted to say I fully support the report of our staff in this regard. As the report says, this is a neighborhood and town landmark, And it was a shame that the original building was demolished in 1969. You know, it was a shame that the beautiful school building at here in Ontario was demolished as recently as 2005. And it's, you know, this property can easily be used and redeveloped into a beautiful adjunct to the rest of the property as it's developed. So I say full speed ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Doherty?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. This question is through you to Director Farr. First of all, I must say I do concur with all of Councillor Hamlin's comments. Within the report as well, though, there was reference to the notion that designating the entire property when there may be an intent at some point in time to sever off the building from the rest of the property would be a complex exercise. Is that the case, or is that a relatively simple exercise to sever off the designated building per se to the rest of the property?
Through you, Madam Chair, Councillor Doherty, the exercise is relatively simple. The town staff would bring forward what's called a de-designation bylaw or an amendment to the existing heritage designation of council is to approve the bylaw tonight, and essentially withdraw the designation or remove the designation from those portions of the site that would be the subject of redevelopment, and that is if the redevelopment proposal met with council's approval. So it would just be dealt with as a package and really would be incidental to the review of any redevelopment on the site.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, Mayor Saunderson?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. It's really more of a comment, and maybe I'll ask Adam for a confirmation, but I've had meetings with Adam and the developer on 2 occasions, I think at least, and this has been a building, I think the current owners are the 3rd or 4th owners of this building and this property. It is a beautiful heritage building that has great infill potential, and the concerns about the de-designation go to the vacant lands around it and the ability to develop those lands for townhomes or single detached homes, whatever the plan is. That won't be complicated by this move. The building has been listed for quite a while, and we're now moving forward with the designation bylaw, and it's my very firm hope that the developer won't see this as an impediment, but that the town is quite prepared to work with them to make sure that this project comes to fruition, because I think we all around the table see the value of this opportunity and want to see this building saved. And based on Ken's comments, with his experience, we look forward to them moving forward with the project and to making that project process as streamlined as we can, and certainly from the de-designation so they can develop the vacant lands around it. We don't view that as being an impediment. And if I can just go through you, Madam Chair, to Director Farr, in the de-designation process, what or who, if anyone, has the ability to appeal the de-designation? Like, is there any way that this process could be delayed or hindered?
Through you, Madam Chair, Mr. Mayor, in the de-designation process, the only party who can appeal de-designation is the owner themselves. There's no third-party right of appeal, which would take this into, I guess, out of the hands of the owner and the town. So it's a straightforward process. And as I said before, we coordinated with the review of the development applications on the property, and council considered the whole package as one.
That being the case, then I will support this. Thank you.
Okay. No other comments? I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Okay, thank you. Thank you for attending, Ken, and speaking to us. 6.2, P 2019-54, authorization to discharge a site plan control agreement by the Jasper Group Office Building, 201 Raglan Street. I've just asked Director Farr to give us a setup for this file, please.
Madam Chair, this is a property located at 201 Raglan Street. It's at the corner of Hume and Raglan. It was the site of a proposed 3-story office building that had received a site plan approval and for which a site plan agreement was entered into. And for personal reasons, the project proponent has asked to have the site plan agreement discharged. That means that they are not pursuing the project at this time. The report recommends that the site plan agreement be so discharged and that the funds be returned to the property owner. Any future development would be required to go through a full site plan process.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak to this matter? Seeing none. Our motion is that staff report P 2019-54 be received and council authorize a discharge of the site plan control agreement from the subject lands being 201 Raglan Street. A mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Hall, Councillor Hamlin, any comments? Deputy Mayor?
Very quick question, just to confirm through you to the director, this discharge has no impact on any of the adjacent properties.
Through Madam Chair, no, it doesn't.
Councillor Hamlin?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, to Director Farr. This site is just in front of where the Holiday Inn site, is that correct?
It's just, I believe it's just to the west of it.
And my second question through you, Madam Chair, is have there been any other discussions, and I don't know, need to know the details, but about an alternative for this site yet?
Through you, Madam Chair, there's been no details yet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Then I will call the question, having it duly moved and seconded. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. 6.3 is C 2019-10, declare land as surplus, sale of lane 27 Simcoe Street. And I will turn this over to our acting clerk, Becky, to give us a little summary.
Thank you. Through the chair to the committee. So the property was sold this year, and the owner has come forward to the town requesting to purchase a small portion of the public back lane. The portion that they're looking at is a 3 meter by 3 meter portion that currently just has utilities stored in it. They're hoping to renovate the building, which is the old Molly Bloom's building, into a live-work kind of building with an office business on the main floor, and him and his wife living on the second floor of the building. This portion of land would allow them to put in an elevator shaft that's required in the new build, but it will not impact the public lane. It's just a small portion. It looks like Adam is being awesome and putting it on the map here for me. So what we're asking for tonight is just to declare it as surplus land to begin the notification process to see if there's any appeal. So it's just a small section of the lane that they're looking to acquire.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone in the gallery who would like to speak to this matter? Seeing none, our motion is that staff report C 2019-10 be received and council declare the portion of the public lane adjacent to 27 Simcoe Street identified in Appendix A being the subject property as surplus to the needs of the municipality, and direct staff to provide the required notice to sell the subject property in accordance with the town's land sale and notice bylaws, with the intent to close up and sell the subject property to the owner of 27 Simcoe Street. Mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Hall, Councillor Doherty. Any questions or comments? Mayor Saunderson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I think the answer is shown on that picture, but I just wanted to be clear that the portion of land that's being sold, the elevator shaft it doesn't jut out or in any way affect or hinder the traffic flow along the laneway.
Through the chair to the mayor. So the elevator itself is going to be located in the building.
Yeah.
What's going to be there is the entranceway, and the entrance will be to the north, so they won't be entering onto the lane. It'll be entering onto that small portion that's left of not the public traveled portion of the lane.
Okay, so it doesn't impede traffic, and it looks like there's a line there, so are they just losing a parking spot or something to put that in, or is it even that much? No, okay, great, thank you.
Yep, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. Perhaps with just a little bit of latitude, I'd like to plant a seed. It's not specific to this, but it's specific to the laneway. Could I have that color photo that was just up there? The photo is looking south out toward 2nd Street, I guess Simcoe Street I should say. That laneway runs north out to Huron to the Parkway. And then of course there's the parking lot that runs with 2 entrances out to St. Marie. We have 3 municipal parking lots that all have these types of entranceways, and the blind spots in Ontario are quite poor. And the seed that I'm planting is that I would like to, at a future opportunity, have a conversation about creating a one-way entrance and then a dual-way exit out onto St. Marie. So you could only enter off of Ontario Street, you could only enter off of Huron, you couldn't exit, and then you could have a dual entry exit onto St. Marie. The same would be with the parking lot behind us here, where you could only enter off of Ontario Street into this lot and then a dual exit, and the same would be off of 3rd Street out beside, I think there's a doctor's office there, and a dual entry point off of
Makes sense.
Fine.
So procedurally, then going forward, as you've planted the seed, what process would that go into so that we can carry it forward?
So I just wanted to plant the seed,
Yeah.
sorry, here's the latitude, was because the visual was there.
Yeah.
I fully respect the fact that we are in the middle of budget deliberations and that we also have a ton of other items on staff's plate. I'm just putting the seed out there, that's all.
Okay. Yeah, it's received. It's
Planting
planted.
as we speak.
Thank you very much. Okay, so with our latitude done. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hammond.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think this may be a question for Director Farr, but is there a site plan application that's been processed for this property yet?
There's no site, through Madam Chair, there's no site plan application that's been filed for this yet.
And through you again, would one be required?
Through you, Madam Chair, when one of developments proposed, we'll consider whether or not alteration is substantial enough to merit going through a full site plan review. And we could apply that lens to this proposal.
Okay, where I'm coming from on this, Madam Chair, is and I don't know the answer to this, but is it premature for us to be selling this without a firm plan for exactly what the owner is going to do?
I got 3 people wanting to answer, so whoever wants to go,
Okay.
I'll let the CEO, his card trumps.
Thank you, and through you, if Becky can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're now going through the process of declaring the asset surplus and going through a process to sell it. To require a site plan without the details, I think would be a bit premature. So I think if we have a site plan agreement, if we have the asset sold, then I think we'll take a look at what is being proposed. I mean, right now, all that is being proposed is some internal reconfiguration, nothing that will impact on the external facade of the property, maybe except for perhaps a door. But when the application comes in, the director will take a look at it. So I think to require a site plan now without the owner being the owner, it's a bit premature.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, no, I totally understand that, which is why I'm sort of struggling with this, because I wonder if the owner doesn't go ahead with the plan that's been suggested for the entranceway here, we've sold the asset, and would we have sold it anyway? Maybe that's my question. Would we sell it anyway, regardless of what the use is planned for this? Thank you.
Through the chair to Councillor Hamlin, we can always put a condition on the purchase and sale agreement should we not be satisfactory with the development moving forward, did it not go through. We've done that in the past.
Okay, I would be happy with that. Can I make an amendment? Shall we do that?
I'll
Through the
let
chair,
the
I
clerk-
believe that's actually noted in the report, and that was going to be our 10 moving forward.
So we'll just make sure that when we do have an offer, that the condition makes its way to,
And through the chair to Councillor Hamlin, you'll be provided with the purchase and sale agreement in closed session before it gets signed anyway, so if there's any additional conditions that council wants at the time, it can be added then. Right now, we're just moving the land forward to declare it as surplus and get the process moving.
Okay, great answer, thank you.
alright, so we have it moved and seconded. Are there any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Alright, thank you very much. 7, we have no reports or minutes of other committees and boards, which brings us to the consent agenda. We have one item, and if there's anyone out in the audience that wishes to speak to the consent agenda. Seeing none. The motion for the committee is that the general consent agenda, having been given due consideration by the Development and Operations Services Standing Committee, be received. And the one item, 8.1, Ontario Building Officials Association transforming and modernizing the delivery of Ontario's building code services, the OBOA solution, which is supported by staff. I have a mover and a seconder to receive. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hull and Councillor Doherty. All those in favor of receiving, that is carried unanimously. Does anyone wish to pull 8.1 and speak to it specifically? Seeing none. Excellent. That brings us to departmental updates. Was that a very fulsome agenda? There are no updates. We are all up to date. All right, that's excellent. Public delegations. Is there anyone here who wishes 5 minutes? Seeing none. That will move us to other business. So first on our list here is 11.1. That the mayor and clerk be hereby authorized to execute heritage preservation and maintenance agreements for the following properties. And before I list them, does anybody wish to speak to this item? Okay, seeing none, I will continue with reading the motion. 19 Hurontario Street, Collingwood, 265 Pine Street, 313 Hurontario Street, 315 Hurontario Street. Okay, mover to seconder. Deputy Mayor Hull, Councillor Doherty, any comments or questions? Easy peasy. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. What an agreeable group you are tonight. I have one piece of other business. Is there anyone else here with other business? Councillor Hamlin?
This was actually a question I had put through the budget, but it didn't really fit there, so I'll just ask it here. It's the former ethanol plant. This is a question through you, I think, to Director Farr. The former ethanol plant, there was an application to demolish that was filed, and it was demolished, the main part of it at least. And now there's just rubble, a big pile of rubble there. And I was wondering what remedies we might have to have that cleaned up. And I wasn't sure if that was a property standards matter or if it's something that normally flows from a demolition permit application.
Thank you for the question. Director Farr?
Through you, Madam Chair. This is an inquiry I forwarded to CBO Miller earlier in the day, and I'm able to access it immediately here. But his response was generally that he had not received a request from the owner to come out and clear the demolition permit. They would typically post a security and then receive the security on completion of demolition. So in this case, the system sort of built in order to compel the applicant for demolition to close out the process. That's not happened. Generally speaking, if there's a state of kind of a disrepair or material that's clogging the site, it is a property standards issue. But I have referred this to CBO Miller. It's typically, as he'd stated to me, unusual to see something like this because of the way the system's set up.
Thank you.
All right. Good. Yep. Deputy Mayor Hull?
I just was going to support Councillor Hamlin that the property is sort of out of sight, out of mind, but I would share her concerns in terms of the state of the property itself.
All right, so we'll receive a report back on that matter. All right. So then lastly, we just want to extend once again our appreciation for Director McDonald, who is retiring, and so this is his last Development Operations Services meeting with us. And with his departure then is the opportunity for Manager Slem to move up to Director of the department, and we look forward to having Peggy reporting here going forward. But tonight is for thanking Director McDonald for all of his help and support on our files, and we appreciate it very much. Thank you. So with that, I need a motion to adjourn. Who would like to adjourn, Council? No, I'd like to. I adjourn. That doesn't work. Councilor Doherty, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much.